Hey kids, welcome to Unit 9, Lesson 1, Inheritance. One of the really useful features of object-oriented programming is inheritance. You may have heard of someone coming into inheritance, which often means they were left something from a relative who recently passed away. Or you might hear someone say that they have inherited musical ability from their parents. I did not, kids. In Java, all classes can inherit attributes, instance variables, and behaviors, methods, from another class. The class being inherited from is called the parent class or superclass. The class that is inheriting is called the child class or subclass. When one class inherits from another, we can say that it is the same kind of thing as the parent class, the class it inherits from. For example, a car is a kind of vehicle. This is sometimes called the is-a relationship, but more accurately, it's a is-a kind of relationship. A motorcycle is another kind of vehicle. All vehicles have a make, a model, and a year that they were created. All vehicles can go forward, backwards, turn left, and turn right. And this is a great little visualization of what I just read up there. Our parent class could be a vehicle. All vehicles have some things in common: make, model, year, driving around. And when we create different subclasses, we can pull some of these instance variables. It means we don't have to rewrite some of our code. We can share it among the code we've already written. A UML, Unified Modeling Language, class diagram shows classes in a relationship between the classes as seen in Figure 1. An open triangle points to the parent class. The parent class for car and motorcycle is vehicle. The vehicle class has two child classes or subclasses, car and motorcycle. And kids, you may just want to familiarize yourself with this because there's a good chance you're going to see a question like this on the exam. So just understand what a UML is and how to identify a parent class by an arrow. To make a subclass inherit from a superclass, use the Java keyword extends with the superclass name when creating a new subclass as shown below. We have a public class car extends vehicle. That's how we write it. Public class motorcycle extends vehicle. Means we're creating our new class, and then we're extending or inheriting our attributes and instant variables from the larger class, which would be vehicle. Note, while a person can have two parents, a Java class can only inherit one parent class. If you leave off the extends keyword when you declare a class, then the class will inherit from the object class that is already defined in Java. What that means, kids, is you can only have one parent class you're pulling from. If you write one and don't declare any parent class, then it's just going to default to the object class that's already been defined. Why use inheritance? Inheritance allows you to reuse data and behavior from a parent class. If you notice that several classes share the same data or behavior, you can pull that out into a parent class. This is called a generalization. Again, kids, might want to remember that. Probably going to see that on the exam. For example, customers and employees are both people, so it makes sense to use the general person class as seen below. Inheritance is also useful for specialization, which is when you want most of the behavior of a parent class, but want to do at least one thing differently or add more data. The example below can also be seen as a specialization. An employee is a person, but they can also have a unique ID. A customer is a person, but they have a credit card. Nobody should have a credit card, kids. Here's that UML right here. And you can see we have name and person, and that's being shared to the two subclasses. But in there, we also have some unique identifiers: credit card info for the customer, ID for the employee. If you don't specify the parent class in a class declaration, which of the following is true? Doesn't have a parent class, it inherits it from the object class, it inherits it from the default class, it inherits it from the parent class. I remember from above, it defaults to the object, so I think that's the right one. If the class vehicle has the instance fields make and model, and the class car inherits from the class vehicle, will a car object have a make and model? Well, yes, it's inheriting all of it from the parent. If I had a class parking garage, should it inherit from the class vehicle? Parking garage, vehicle. Is a parking garage a type of vehicle? I don't think it is. I'm going to go with no. How many parents can a class have? Well, it can only have one, kids. A student class can also inherit from a class person, just like an employee and a customer, because a student is a type of person as well. What do you need to add to the student class declaration below to make it inherit from type person? When you fix the code of instance of operator will return true that the student S is an instance both of the student and the person class. What other private instance variables could you add to person and student? In which class would you put the address attribute? Where would you put GPA? Let's take a look at our code here. Well, we have our class person here. Looks like we have a string name. And how can we make student class inherit from the class person? We have our public class here. We have an int ID, and it looks like we're creating a new object S and then printing off S instant of student, S instant of person. And what the instance of is just checking to make sure it is part of that class. Let's go ahead and hit save and run and see what happens. We get a bunch of errors, and that's because we are not pulling from our parent class. So what do we have to do? Well, if you remember from above, we have to type the word extends, and then what class? Well, the person class, we want to get that private string name there. And we're just pulling from person. Now, if I hit save and run, I get true and true. That means S is now an instance of both the person and the student class. What other things could we pull in? Well, they were looking for things we could put into person and more specific to a student. What class would we put an address in? Where would you put GPA? Well, I think an address is more of a person thing than it is a student thing, but sometimes you might need a student address. In this, I would put private, we'll put string, and we'll just name it address. A GPA, well, a person doesn't need a GPA. The only thing that needs a GPA is a student. And we'll put that as a double, like that. Now, student has access to address, and it has its own instance variables ID and GPA. We hit save and run, nothing should change here. And we get true and true again. And kids, that is how we use inheritance in our code to reuse our attributes and instance variables. And kids, that's it for part 1 of lesson 1, inheritance. Hopefully you found this video helpful. As always, if you have any questions, come see me. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next video. See you later, kids. Bye. Bye.